My last name may be Kniery, but I don't sing. I used to be a teacher, and the last time I sang to my students, they put their fingers in their ears and begged for mercy. So I don't do that anymore. What I've been doing, though, recently is I've been working with 3 other ladies, and we're going to put on a program with the Tale Tellers of St. Augustine. It'll be the 31st of March. That's the last day of Women's Month, and it has to do with the women's movement because it's been 100 years now since the women have been able to vote. Yeah, I mean that was quite an accomplishment considering it's been 200 and some odd years since the men have been able to vote. And so we've been studying this, and we've been pulling up stories about different things that have happened. One of the people who was at the Constitutional Convention was John Adams. His wife Abigail said, well, what are you going to do about the women? Are we going to get to vote? It started all the way back then. In 1848, at a tea party, there were several very important ladies there, Lucretia Mott, Elizabeth Cady Stanton, Susan B. Anthony, who all said it's time for us to move forward. It's time for us to be able to vote too. Of course, they weren't able to do it immediately. Civil War came and went. Still no voting for women, but they allowed black men. And that kind of upset the women. There was a break there because of the color barrier. But black women and white women, black men, all thought that this was something that needed to be done. And so they started to write letters. And then they became activists. They actually went out on the streets and started marching. There was one lady whose name was Lucy Byrne, who worked with another lady named Alice Paul. In 1914, they stood outside the White House with placards saying, when are you going to let us vote? Mr. President, what are you going to do for us? They didn't do much more than that, but stand there and ask those questions. And yet they were arrested. They sent 40 policemen down to arrest 33 women. They called it the Night of Terror. Those women were arrested. They were beaten with cudgels. They were taken to jail. Their arms were suspended above their heads, even though they were already bleeding. They force-fed Alice Paul and Lucy Burns. And it wasn't until the word leaked out of what was happening, and it got in the newspaper, that anybody even took notice. Finally, Woodrow Wilson needed some help. He needed some support for his war, World War I. And he decided he'd put the Susan B. Anthony amendment before Congress, and Congress passed it. That happened in 1819. At that time, 2/3 of the states, 36 states had to say, yes, we will ratify it. 37 states, I'm getting my numbers wrong, 35 states ratified it, and most of them were northern states. And they finally came to Tennessee. It passed the state Senate. They were going to ratify it. Then it came to the House. There they stood, those who were for and those who were against. They started the roll call, and soon there were 5 that said no. And then there were 4, 5, 6 that said yes. And it kept going until it finally came down to 28 to 28. And there was one man left to stand and cast his vote. He stood there with a red rose pinned to his lapel. The red rose signified that he was going to vote nay. But he had had a letter from his mother that morning. Harry Burns stood there, remembering that letter. His mother told him to be a good son, to do the right thing, to help Mrs. Katz put the rat in ratification. And Harry voted yay, and the 19th Amendment was law. Now, on March 1st, that's this Sunday, down in the plaza, there will be a reenactment of some of the marches that took place. And there's a women's rally down there. Men and women are invited to go, because there are still things in our lifetime that women are discouraged from doing. Here's a funny one. Back in the 5th century in Ireland, Saint Bridget said to Saint Patrick, "Why is it that women can't ask men to marry them? Why is that not proper?" And St. Patrick said it shouldn't be that way, but it is. He says, "I'll tell you what, we will make one day for women to ask men to marry them. It will be the 29th of February. Now, those of you who have calendars know that only comes around once every 4 years. The 29th of February is this Saturday. Those unmarried men who don't want to be caught, run. Thank you.